Everyone, to another episode of Tutorial Tuesday. This is week number 5, 2019, and we already have a ton of questions on tap. I'll be getting into those in just a few minutes, but first I want to do a few announcements for you. Number 1, I want you to tune in next Tuesday, February 5th at 7 p.m. I'll be doing another Instagram Live, and this time I'm going to be doing it with my attorney, Scott Temby, and we're going to be talking about copyright infringement. Now, I did this one a few weeks ago already with Hannah from Cowboy Features and Circle Y Equine, but this time I'm going to have my attorney with me and we're going to be taking on your questions relating to copyright infringement. So I want you to tune in for that next Tuesday, February 5th at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. The second announcement, I had the pleasure of being on the Modern Cowboy podcast yesterday, hosted by Dan Hillenbrand. Once I get the link for that podcast and once it's published, I'll be sharing that with you in a post. But for now, I want you to take a minute. I want you to tune in to Dan Hillenbrand's Modern Cowboy podcast, and I'll put a link right over here. Announcement number 3, and this is the one I'm really excited about. I'm going to be doing a monthly giveaway. And this giveaway is going to be based on a photography challenge. So the first Tuesday of every month, I'm going to be posting a photography challenge for you. And you're going to submit the images, and the image that wins is going to get a free portfolio review. Now, this review is worth about $150. That's what I charge for it. And I'm going to be giving that away, but it is based on that photography challenge. So I'm going to direct you to my blog, and you'll get all the rules and everything once I post those up there. So a monthly giveaway that's given the first Tuesday of every month based on a photography challenge, and you get a shout out and you get a portfolio review from me. So excited for that one. I can't wait to see what you guys come up with. So tune in. All right, great question to start us off with. When do we need people and property releases? And I'm going to take a few minutes and I'm going to just kind of go over the basics of what they are and when we should use them, because in fact it is Tutorial Tuesday. There's a lot of these terms that we throw around: model release, minor release, property release, you name, non-disclosure agreement. I don't know. The list goes on and on. Anyways, the answer is it really depends. There's the shoulds of the world. Should you use one all the time? Yes, you should. Do I use one all the time? No, I don't. It depends on the shoot that I'm on. So in other words, if there's a straight commercial shoot and I'm using a celebrity, yes, there will be an agreement in place. However, but sometimes in a situation like that, you're also going to be signing a non-disclosure agreement, which means you're not going to be able to, talk about that kind of shoot, the celebrity or something like that. It really depends on what you're doing. So when I'm out branding, no, I don't run up to the owners and say, hey, please sign this property release and please sign this model release. That doesn't happen, and I would venture to guess it doesn't happen that often at all, especially in those situations. But now, on the other hand, let's say you do go out, you cover branding, you find an image that you could potentially sell as stock. You won't be able to sell that image as stock if it's recognizable, if someone is recognizable in the picture without a release. Now, technically speaking, the property release is just a permission slip, if you will, and I don't want to dumb that down, but it's basically giving you permission to shoot on someone's property, and the model release is a general release saying you can use my image. Now, if I have any attorneys watching this, they're probably slapping me left and right. But what the releases do for us, they release us or potentially release us from liability should something catastrophic happen. Now, I don't mean to drag this on and on, but in certain situations where I have been with celebrities, sports, or otherwise, you are signing releases and you are also providing your proof of business owner insurance for indemnification as well. This is a really good question. Thank you for asking it. I will post, 5 or 6 different sites that you can go to. None in any particular order, but just those that I have experience with. And then I'll also give you some recommendations on what to look out for. The websites that I would recommend, KEH.com, borrowlenses.com, Adorama.com, BH Photo Video, and also Amazon. All of those provide used equipment for sale, with KEH probably being number one. Some of these sites will provide great overviews of the equipment for sale that's used, and they'll give it a grade, and they have a very easy rating system that you can look into. And of course, The better the equipment is, the more you're going to pay for it. So let's say you go to one of these sites and you want to buy a used camera. What you're going to be looking for is what's called shutter actuation, or how many times we've clicked that shutter on the camera. For Canon, that's somewhere between 100,000 and 250,000 clicks. Now that shutter actuation also depends on the kind of camera that you're getting. So what you'll want to do is visit the camera manufacturer's site and see what they rate that shutter actuation to be, and then go from there. But these sites like KEH, they do a fabulous job rating. Now, one last thing here, you guys. I just want you to know that I am not paid, and these places don't send me free stuff to plug them. These are my own experiences with these places. So thanks for tuning in. The first tip here is just know that you're not alone. Even for those of us that are making a living at this, we have to find a balance. And we can augment what's going on, like in terrible arena lighting, with some flashes or something like that. So when you're shooting in an arena, or you're shooting a concert, or a wedding even, I'm not afraid whatsoever to be shooting at somewhere in the neighborhood of ISO 3200 to ISO 6000, depending on what I need. Some of this also comes down to your equipment. You also have to have fast glass, or lenses that get down to f2.8 or even lower in aperture to allow that light to come through to balance out those exposures. Now finally, if you're shooting with a newer camera, the sensor is going to handle that higher noise so much better than, say, an 8 or 9-year-old digital camera. So just make sure you're using a good camera that handles high ISO too. Here's an example. I was shooting a stock dog trial in an arena with terrible lighting. I didn't use my flashes. I was shooting at ISO 10,000 at an aperture of f2.8 to get to a shutter speed of somewhere in the neighborhood of 1/500th of a second. Now, I could go higher with my ISO, but 10,000 is about the maximum that I would shoot at. I'm all for getting the image, and doing what it takes to get the image, but at that noise level, that's about what I accept. This is always a good question, and one that I do like talking about. Let's get some myths out of the way first, and that is a watermark is not your copyright. Number 2, a watermark is not legally required to affect your copyright. Having a watermark on your image is a best practice in the industry. From a business standpoint, it's your branding. So if you see my images online, you see the CDP in the corner, you automatically know that it's mine, and that will develop over time too. What you have for your watermark and where you put your watermark on your image is entirely up to you. It comes down to just your own personal style with what you choose for your watermark, the opacity of it, and even where you put it on the image. Now, as far as establishing a watermark, maybe in the beginning what you want to do is put your name and your website down there, to start that branding. And then over time, perhaps you shrink it down. Even mine started out that way. In one of my previous tutorials over on my YouTube channel, you can see how it's changed over time. I don't recall which tutorial that was, but I went from big and long across the bottom to finally just something in the bottom right-hand corner. This is definitely something that I've considered, but in the past, in all these years, I've never used something like that. And I've also considered drones, but I still have yet to go out and purchase one of those and get it up in the air too. So thanks for the question though. Good question. I generally underexpose my images, or at least they start out that way. If you look at this image of Leanne here, which will be at Art of the Cowgirl, by the way, and these, I generally start out with an image that's underexposed. Here are a few quick hitters for you to make some money. Number 1, sell to stock agencies like Shutterstock, iStock, Getty Images, or even Adobe Stock. Number 2, sell cards from the images that you make. And number 3, sell an annual calendar. My experience with Lightroom presets is significant, extensive. I'm not sure what else to say, but I've been using Lightroom since 2008, 2009. I have a preset for pretty much everything that I do, and it's always a starting point. So with my Lightroom presets, I have them set up for the arenas that I shoot in, for the meeting rooms that I shoot in, even for the studio work that I do. And then, like I said before, they're just a starting point, and I go from there. This is always a favorite question of mine, so thank you for asking. I use a 16 to 35, and I use a 70 to 200 when I'm out branding, and my absolute favorite would be my 16 to 35. For those of you that are interested, I have a page that I set up that has all my equipment on it, and you can see exactly what's in my bag, from lenses and cameras, to stuff I recommend. So go ahead and swipe left or swipe up, however you're looking at this, and take a look. Thank you for your interest in my workshops. I'm providing a link that you can swipe to get more information about the schedule and things like that, but the cost varies. For September's workshop, it's $1,500, and it's right here in Utah. So go ahead and swipe and take a look. These kinds of lenses are good, but they're not great at anything. They're what's considered a kit lens. They're affordable, they have variable aperture, which means they're not letting as much light down the lens. If you bought that 6 years ago, I strongly encourage you to upgrade that glass. Now, I want you to note that I'm not telling you that as a put down. I'm just giving you the facts about these lenses. I started out with those too, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want the best quality images that you can possibly get, buy an L-series lens. Wouldn't it be great if we were all independently wealthy and we could buy the most expensive equipment? Well, that's not the case. But as a result, we have places like KEH.com, and you can go look at their used market of lenses and still pick up something reasonable with high quality. The first thing I'll tell you is this: there's nothing easy in business. The one thing that you can't do is nothing. You constantly have to market yourself. So regardless of what your goals are, you have to get yourself out there. How do you do that? Well, there's a multitude of ways. You can pay for Google advertising. You can sponsor posts on Instagram. You can even pay for advertising on Facebook. They all have such good analytics for you. But to find that person that's going to buy that print from you, you have to get yourself out there, number one.